Tuesday, January 9th at 7:05 PM, and this is a streets meeting. Present are Mike Flickinger, Tommy Grant, Kathy Passion, Mayor Southard, and me, Stacy Koss. So we haven't had a meeting in a while, so this is kind of just a recap about what's going on. We're starting with the Jordan Road project technically this week, but maybe we got to rain down a little bit. And then I think we should talk about that, where we are, if we need to kind of think about what else we need to do for that project. And then I also got your email about the streets assessments and the sewer assessments, so maybe we can talk about that as well.
Okay.
Do you want me to hand it off to you?
Yeah, we can go. I think we'd say we didn't have necessarily a formal agenda, so we can just kind of let it roll for a little bit and just kind of see where things go. I do think the project that's probably on most everybody's mind is the 2023 storm sewer project, and now we're in 2024. That's the also known as Jordan Road storm sewer project. So as Stacy mentioned, excuse me, we had a little issue with some pipe deliveries at the back end of 2023, so we decided rather than get started right at the end of the year and then have to pull off because he didn't have enough pipe material, we pushed everything back into beginning of 2024. So he has all the pipe materials on site. So the contractor has all the material he needs to move forward with the project. Because we didn't get the material until the end of last week, the end of last week, we hoped to do pipe work this week, but we didn't get the material to the end of last week. So he already committed to staying on a different project through the rest of this week. And then he's coming over to the village starting Monday is the plan, the 15th. So he actually is going to have some work going on this week over at the church property. We're going to start some saw cutting of the pavement so we can do the sanitary sewer portion of that storm sewer project. There's for those who aren't completely up to speed on that project, I know at least for you two, I think it's probably pretty new. We have a stretch of sanitary sewer that we need to lower and extend so that we can get our storm sewer over the top of it. So he wants to do that work first because it's lower. We have to saw cut some pavement over at the church property. And if you're not familiar with the church property, he has the paved parking lot. We're running the sanitary sewer right down his eastern driveway. And then once that work is done, starting next week, the contractor intends to mobilize in earnest, and they will be starting at the far east of the project. So at the tie-in point on the Northland Plaza property, there's a drainage structure that we're tying into to take the flow the rest of the way. That's the starting point, and he's going to start there and work his way west. So we're going uphill. We do that for a few reasons. Number one, we want everything to run away from the excavation while we're doing the work. Number two, if you make a bust at the top end, you can't make it up at the downstream end since it's all gravity. So we always want to start at the bottom so we hit the elevations correctly. He anticipates completing the storm sewer work and the rough grading work February 2nd. So he'll have about 3 weeks of consistent work in the field. Then we'll pull off the project until springtime. And then when the weather is more favorable and it starts to dry out a little bit and we can plant grass, we'll come back in and do the finished grading, which will be the restoration, putting grass seed down, watering it for, putting hydro seed down, and then hoping it catches. That's always a bit of a challenge. And then after that, we'll be finished with that project. So
Seems like
about
it's climactic in a way.
they always are. It's just the way it is. You spend all that time building up to it and doing all the engineering work and meeting with the residents, and then all of a sudden it's just done. And
3 weeks later.
yeah, and for me, that's always been kind of one of those weird situations. Like if I were a structural engineer and I like, if I, or an architect and I design a municipal building, I can, when it's done, everyone can drive by and see the work that I did, but like our stuff is like, oh, that's over there and there's a backyard, so you don't really see it.
There's a pipe.
Yeah, so, about 3 hard weeks of work here, weather permitting, if we were trying to do stuff today, it would, I'm hopeful that this doesn't, because it's rained so much today, I'm hopeful it doesn't really push anything back, and next week's temperatures don't look great. They look pretty chilly, so, there's a small part of me that expects there could be a delay just for weather. The challenge with installing pipe and certain things in the colder weather is that you spend so much time waiting for your equipment to warm up. You have to go out there and you start your excavator and then you have to let it run for 30 minutes before you can do anything, and then it gets dark it's better now, but it gets dark so early that you get 5 hours of work, and so it takes 5 hours of daylight basically, so it takes a little bit of time to it can extend the project potentially, so I'm hopeful that doesn't happen.
Considering the wind chills are gonna be, or not the wind chills, but the regular temperature is gonna be in the negatives. So I'm also anticipating that it may not even start next week, but we'll see.
Maybe they're just and they'll be like, weather doesn't affect us.
I mean, I'm sure they can dig, but, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. Can't maneuver with your hands or do anything. So.
No.
That's why they have excavators.
Yeah, and gloves.
Yeah.
Tell them to wear an extra scarf, it'll be fine.
Someone has to join that pipe together, and that's the problem. Also, sometimes the pipe will crack because it's too cold.
It's colder underground, right? Just kidding.
So I guess, does anybody have any questions about that project?
That seems pretty straightforward.
I knew somebody had asked me if they had fixed, or everything was, it was the guy that lives right by you, Stacy. It was asking me, but because his basement had flooded.
Which one?
I don't remember his name.
Is it Larry?
But he's like diagonal, kind of from you.
Weeks? Is he an old white guy?
He was not old.
Oh.
He's in his 40s. He said his basement flooded, had a bunch of mold, and he was asking me, he's like, I wonder, have they fixed all those problems? And
That lives diagonal from me?
Kind
On
of.
the same street?
yeah, it's like, it's kind of around the corner a little bit.
Huh. I feel like everybody saw it get done.
Okay, what? Okay, yeah, I mean,
Huh.
but I think people want, is it done?
That part is done.
Okay.
That's been done.
I didn't have an answer for him.
Yeah, the work that we did, the sewer work that we did over in that part, we had substantial completion on like July 3rd, 2022.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I'm a little.
I don't think it was recent, but it was just one of those things that I think, anytime somebody has their basement fill up with sewage water.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You go,
Nobody wants that.
PTSD. Yeah,
Huh.
I had bed bugs once, it's the worst thing ever. Not in my current house, we burned the other place down.
Oh, okay. That's
Not
why I
really.
live here.
But-
Okay. That makes a lot more sense.
You go, ah.
That always scares me coming
Oh.
home from vacation.
Yeah.
Always terrifies
We
me.
don't know what the whole airport had. Anyways, different story for a different
Sorry,
day.
yes.
That project is a different project. It is very much completed.
Okay.
I think this project that we did a lot, that's pretty cool. Planning wise.
We still have one outstanding easement. But it's a commercial easement.
Business?
Yeah.
Is it 5454?
No, it's the rehabilitation center.
Tiffany loves that place.
So, Jesse and Eric are trying to lean on them. We made first outreach to them in, I think, late July. We got comments from them on the easement, and we addressed them probably like 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah, it's been like,
So
since
there's
we
just radios now?
I'm not really sure I'm not sure what their issue is as far as executing it. We really just need the easement to reconnect their storm sewer to the storm sewer system.
That's Sounds like they may want to do that.
So, I mean, if we can't get under their property, I'm not sure we can reconnect their storm sewer. So I think,
Do you think that, I guess I have a question. I still see water once in a while on Cleveland from some,
It's 54.
it's, are we calling that creative plumbing?
we had
Fix that?
so
That
we,
would fix that.
so we had a conversation with the owners of the rehabilitation center.
Mhm.
And actually, I think that water's their water.
I think so too.
Because it just so happens, like if you look at 5454 Cleveland, there's the, on the north side, kind of the access drive that goes back to the rehabilitation center,
Mhm.
there's a water meter vault out there.
Mhm.
And there's something with their like plumbing in the water meter vault. So we had a conversation with them, we said, well, that's on you. But then also the storm sewer out in front of their property doesn't drain very well.
Right, so that would make sense.
And then, that's the city of Columbus's storm sewer system, because the right of way and everything for the village ends at the back eastern side of the sidewalks. So, any side, so the sidewalk that runs along Cleveland Avenue, that's on the east side of the road, the village's boundary / right of way ends at the back of the sidewalk. So pretty much the sidewalk west is all city of Columbus.
Got it.
And so I think Eric gave the rehabilitation center owner or manager, one of those guys, I think he gave him some contact information for the city of Columbus, and I think he might have contacted the city to help him, just like, hey, it seems like there's something going on over here, just to be a good neighbor.
Yeah.
And then basically like that's it, like that, it's no longer the village's responsibility, so.
Got it.
And the problem is we're at that time of year, you get this rain, if we get this rain, I don't anticipate it, but like if we got this rain on like Sunday, Cleveland Avenue is just gonna be a sheet of ice that entire eastbound, or that eastern northbound lane is just gonna be ice from basically the Yasmin Market past the Northland Plaza entrance, because it always freezes there.
Well, it magically disappears when the weather is colder, which is strange.
No.
So I don't know how it works, but
I think the biggest concern
it appears
is
and disappears.
the water that is sitting there on a day of -1 degree is going to be,
That's what I'm saying.
somebody's going to end up being liable for something. Because I know it's a sheet of ice. It is a complete sheet of ice.
So I think-
hopefully they get it figured out.
Yeah, I think the city has been made aware that there's an issue there.
Okay. Do you think if we get there's a lot of ifs, if we get an easement and we connect their sewer, there's a possibility that they may not have as much water?
No, they're
Different.
different
Okay.
situations.
Okay. I have no further questions when it comes to that. We're ready to go. Does anybody else have? I mean, you guys are new to this, so it's okay to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, we can take this as an opportunity, even just in general, because we're generally every 2 years catching people up, and some people like the mayor and Stacy have kind of lived with certain projects for a very long time, so it's almost second nature to them, but.
My question is there any kind of diagram or scheme or something that I could see of Minerva Park that shows streets, sewers, all that sort of thing, everything that we're talking about? That'd be super helpful.
Yeah, we have, I can email it to you. It actually might be on the village's servers somewhere, but we have, they're referred to as atlases. So we have a storm sewer atlas that shows all the known storm sewers and where they connect and where they run. We have a sanitary sewer atlas that shows where all the sanitary sewers are. We don't have a true waterline atlas. We've never needed to generate one, but we have a GIS set up, and the GIS shows all of the storm sewers, all of the sanitary sewers, all of the water, all the fire hydrants. We have that. It's behind our wall. coordinating with Eric on some final tweaks. And then the intent is for that to be, we have to work out the hosting, but then the intent is for that to be accessible from the village's website. So any resident, or anybody who has access to the internet, can click on it and see. It's very common. A lot of the, most communities have that available to them. So I think there's a little bit of,
Do you have presentations on here?
there's a little bit of like I said, there's the hosting to figure out, because like I said, right now it's just on our network. And we work out deals sometimes with some smaller communities, but then sometimes it's more efficient to like get your own contract with like AWS or something, and then it just gets hosted on their servers, and then it's just accessible from your website and stuff. So that's what we're trying to finalize with Eric.
I think this is fairly sufficient though. Your presentation for the storm sewer project has some of these diagrams.
Yeah, but we have the ones for like the whole.
Oh.
Yeah, so what we've generated is for the sanitary sewers and the storm sewers, we have a 5-page atlas. So the first page is just an overview, and then it shows how we're breaking the village down into 4 pieces, and then pages 2 through 5 are blow-ups of the village in fourths, and then that way you can see structure names and things like that. But
It'd be great to have like a streets committee OneDrive where everybody could just go to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm totally thinking corporate America, just how it's, stuff works. To anybody that comes and go, hey, now you have access to the streets
Yeah.
OneDrive, and you can go, there's maps, there's this, there's prior projects.
Yeah.
yeah, because right now, and some of this got, when you start moving from place to place and you're trying to get things set up. So we've spent some time on our end organizing things internally, so that at some point when you guys are ready and you kind of have more like an accessible server of some sort, which I know you do, but a lot of that requires like you send it to Barb and then she has to go file it, and then so we've organized like the water projects by project, like the year it was done, and then we've put little readme texts to tell you like which streets are in this project, and then we have all the sanitary sewer drawings, we have all the storm sewer drawings that you can find. I mean, there aren't very many. There's just not a lot of good records for a lot of this stuff, but
I think that was one of our issues too in the beginning, was that we didn't even know where the sewer was.
yeah, especially the storm sewers. We didn't know where any of the storm. I mean, the village contracted with a surveyor to just go out, and we basically just said, here's where we think they were. And they went and found them, gave us elevations, we connected the dots, be like, okay, well this one should come here based on this survey. And then you go out there, and when you're televising it, you find out, no, that one actually goes over here. And so we're updating them every year based on CCTV work and stuff. So it's continually evolving.
Guesstimates?
I assume the only hard part's the legacy part, the MI hadn't provided all of that.
We got, they had to give us as-built drawings
Yeah.
for the MI portion, which did help. They were nice enough to they just gave us the CAD files. I mean, we have the hard copies, but we asked them, like, can you just give us your AutoCAD files? And that would just make our lives easier, and then we just reference them into our GIS. I still have a goal of having a surveyor go out and do true survey of the entire sanitary sewer system in the legacy part, but it's it just costs money. I mean, to do a whole survey of the sanitary sewer is probably, now in 2024, it's probably $25,000 to $35,000. It's not like it's a lot of effort as far as like they're going out there, they're taking a shot, they're going to pop the manhole, they're going to take a shot on the pipes. So it's not like it's not like they're having to whack down a bunch of trees or overgrowth or something, but it's just, we have in the legacy part of the village, I think we have 200 sanitary sewer manholes. So, it probably takes 3 weeks to do the whole thing. And you're talking a crew day is probably, $5,000 or $6,000. So all of a sudden, you're looking at,
$10.
yeah.
In the village, this is just a general question. So especially the legacy part that doesn't have sidewalks, do I own my property up to the street? Okay. Okay, so
There's still an
streets-
easement.
There's an easement.
There's a yeah, you have easements and rights of way. But,
Is it 15 feet from the street? Is that?
it's not from the street, it's not necessarily from the street, it's generally from like the center line of the street.
Okay.
So, most of the street rights of way in the village are 50 feet wide. So you go from basically the approximate center line of the road, generally go 25 feet each direction.
Ah,
So the pavement is, in the village, it's generally 22 feet wide. So you have roughly 11-foot lanes. So then generally there's a right-of-way that's another 14 feet outside of the pavement, so.
That's
It's
almost
about
right.
15 feet is pretty close.
I had done some measuring. From Franklin County Auditor and like
Yeah.
looking at like
I mean,
where
they-
things are. and
Looking at
going-
trees?
No, I was just looking at, we were talking about the little pathway that might come
Yeah.
with what's the name of that commission? Central Ohio something.
CODA.
Yeah, it was a part of Kona, yeah.
CODA's supposedly dumping money into
Yeah.
pathways to connect from bus
Yeah.
stops to.
I was like,
Other
man, they
locations.
don't own a lot, I mean, they own the land, but,
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's a right of way. It was interesting, I mean, I'm learning a lot myself, like,
But like, for all intents and purposes, like, you're responsible for that. Yeah.
Yes, you can't just not cut it.
Yeah. That's the question. Yeah, you need, yeah.
no, I just didn't know, like, trees and stuff like that.
Oh, you're gonna get in that conversation, don't
Oh,
worry.
yeah.
Oh, it's such a big deal to me when people don't take care of their trees, because it affects everyone.
Well, and
Okay.
that is the conversation in the news section. We won't waste Mike's time, but you are right in the right path.
Okay.
And that has been an ongoing in a circle for 2 years now. Who's responsible to take care of the tree-lined trees when they die in the news section?
You're allowed to have an opinion on that.
Are they in the right of way part
Correct.
of people's lawns?
Right.
They're in the right of way, but they're it's in their yard. And they were all planted as part of their package or, whatever, as part of every house got two.
yeah, two in the front. at
And then
least.
if they're on a corner lot, there are more. And long story short, there is a debate whether or not the village should prune them and maintain them and cut them and mulch them and do all of those things.
And when they
Or-
die, who's responsible?
And who's responsible if they die? Do they have to replace it if it dies? Because there is verbiage in there about all of that.
Did we
So
come to
that's-
a conclusion on that? Why can't we make decisions?
I don't know, but I'm the one that has to deal with it constantly.
Why?
Who's responsible?
Okay.
And I can't tell them because we don't have an answer.
I
Like,
have an answer, but,
well,
at
I mean,
some point-
it's
That's why we got,
it needs to be a
Think about that.
priority.
Yeah.
It needs to be a priority before spring, because right now you don't know if the trees are dead or not. But as they come back, we'll see how many are dead, and
okay,
that needs to be
we'll talk about that.
so yes, great question.
There's a lot of sore subjects around here.
Yeah, there's,
Well, and for me, just to understand what streets really encompasses, because it's under and over,
correct.
under and on top, and then how far into yards and all that.
Is
stuff.
that a streets thing? We can make it a streets thing, and we can make that recommendation.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes along with the sidewalks too.
Sure, let's do it.
So-
You wanna do it?
As far as the sidewalks go, as they're nobody has taken the initiative to go and mark the cracked sidewalks over there, and there are plenty, and I'm gonna say this on a public record, somebody has one that is so bad over there that I will say I was on my phone, but I literally almost fell. I completely tripped over it, I caught myself, and it is whose responsibility? It is theirs. It is the homeowner's responsibility, yet we have not sent them a letter, and there is more than one.
Also another source subject.
Yes, so, but we don't have, it's very difficult because the village doesn't have the manpower to, is that our maintenance person's thing that they need to be doing when and driving? So that's another topic in itself.
It's definitely probably gotta start with education first.
Yeah, well,
That's probably the hardest part, is, hey, did you know?
Right.
this is your sidewalk.
Yeah,
Yeah, and your tree. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that. We could do like a PSA. That'd be nice. Okay, anyways, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about, what do you want to talk about?
You wanna do the CCTV
Yeah.
that you guys
The
just,
email?
So actually, let's back up a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Just a tiny bit, and you can take this over. But with the exception of 1 year that council decided not to do it, every year we televise, and when I say televise, that actually, and again, interrupt whenever. Televise doesn't just mean look through them, it means cleaning them. Some need cleaned they are much fuller, especially when you get over in this section, over by the lakes and things like that, when there's a lot of trees. So when we say televise, we do a section. We actually did it in 3 sections. We did was it the sanitary or the storm that we did in 3 sections?
It was sanitary.
Sanitary, we did in 3 sections. We won't be doing that with everything else, and as we move forward, we just wanted to know how bad the sewers really were at that point. So each year, we will do a section of the village. We will start bringing in the new development, because again, it's not just, we know that they're not collapsing, but we need to make sure that they're clean. So we did a televising 2-3 years ago that we have never really addressed those issues. I don't know that you're prepared to talk about that, but maybe if you could include anything that you feel like in that one and this one, because it just hasn't been done. And there wasn't anything like a complete collapse, but maybe since this one is possibly a small one, maybe we could join some of that together. And all I mean by that is we did CCTV the last time, and we did not address, there was nothing major, so we didn't address anything at that time because there's obviously been a lot going on. So that's why I'm bringing up one from quite a while ago, because we haven't addressed it.
Yeah, so as the mayor said, I'll give you this is the total Reader's Digest version. The village had to enter into findings and orders with Ohio EPA. Every satellite community in central Ohio had the exact same findings and orders. So a satellite community is a community that sends its wastewater to the city of Columbus for treatment. There are 22 of them in central Ohio. Most of them are like your bigger suburbs, like, Dublin, Upper Arlington, Powell, all of those send their wastewater to Columbus. And then you have places like Minerva Park, Riverly, I think, Marble Cliff, you have some smaller communities too that do it. So what had happened was Ohio EPA was coming down on the city of Columbus, and they're saying, hey, you need to cut back on, you need to reduce the amount of stormwater that's coming into your sanitary sewer system, because you don't want clean water going into your sanitary system because you're paying money to treat clean water, and it's expensive. So City of Columbus said, okay, well, we can do what we can handle our areas, but we can't we can't force the village of Minerva Park to do anything because we have a contract with them, but we can't make them do there's certain things we can make them do, and we can't make them do this. So Ohio EPA said, you're correct, so we'll help you out. So village had findings and orders. Part of the findings and orders was to do an entire sanitary sewer system evaluation, and so we performed that for the village. One of the recommendations that came out of that was to implement a cleaning and televising program. So we started a cleaning and televising program, and the plan at the time was to do, this is before the MI development came on. So the plan was to do 1/6 of the village every year, basically. And we were starting with sanitary first because that's what you were required to do by the findings and orders. Around 2018 or so, when mayor was on council, we decided, and the mayor was actually one of the ones who brought this up, and I think it was a good use of the village's money at that time, was, hey, let's not stretch the sanitary sewer over 6 years because we think there are a lot of problems with it. We have the funds because at that point, MI development had started coming in, so now we had money that we didn't have before that we could start putting into the cleaning and televising. So we did one section, and then we did the second section, and then we just did the rest of the village at one time. Which was good because we identified a few, problem sanitary sewers that needed to be addressed. We hammered those areas, got those areas addressed, fixed a lot of pipes, fixed a number of manholes, and then that made Ohio EPA very happy because we addressed a lot of I&I. We reduced the amount of stormwater going into the sanitary sewer system. So then the village decided at that point, hey, we haven't done anything with our storm sewers. And I mean, I'm not sure if everyone's aware of this, but the legacy part of the village, those sewers were installed roughly 1929.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Those of us who live there.
So, you know, the legacy part, the legacy infrastructure in the village is approaching 100 years old.
Oh, my God.
So we said, hey, let's start looking at the sanitary, or the storm sewers too. So what we did in conjunction with the village was we developed 2 CCTV programs. So there's one for the sanitary, one for the storm sewer. And we now have the MI portion of the village to account. So instead of doing the village once every 6 years, we do it once every 7 years. So the program lasts 7 years. So we'll get to a sewer segment typically once every 7 years, which in a perfect world, if you could get to them once every 5 years, that's somewhat more preferred. But, you know, we've discussed this with the village, and it's a relatively low risk thing to push it out. Plus, this costs money, you know, so I mean, again, you can't, it's hard to just say, you need to spend money on this, you need to spend money on this, you need to spend money on this, and all of a sudden you just run out of money. So we think 7 years is good. In conjunction with the village, and I can't remember who brought this up, someone brought this up when we were starting the program, and I think this was a good idea. When we first did the sanitary sewer, we started on the northern part of the village and worked our way south, because that's how everything flows. So we wanted, if there were problems on the northern part, we wanted to clean them up so less water would go to the sewer. So we started in the Jordan Road area and worked our way south. When we started to bring in the storm sewer, we were just going to follow the same path. Just basically start north to south. And one of the council members, and I can't remember, and I don't know, Mayor, if you remember, but someone said, hey, we think it would be better because the storm sewer doesn't flow north to south. It flows wherever it needs to go. Basically, it flows both directions to get into the lakes. So someone said, we think it would be good if we started the storm sewer on the south and worked north so that residents are seeing something happening in their area basically every few years. So it wouldn't be like Jordan Road gets both and then the people on Lakewood don't see anything for 7 years. It's like you would see everything basically once every 3.5 years on average. So we thought, you know what, that's a good, it doesn't affect like how we lay anything out. It doesn't change it's a good public relations thing that residents can see we're doing stuff. So as the mayor mentioned, we did an inspection in 2021 of the storm sewer. So what we did is once we did the sanitary sewers and finished them, we kind of pushed pause on the sanitary sewers for a while because we're like, we've already inspected everything. So, you know, I think the last sanitary sewer inspection we did was like 2000, might have been 18. So then we said, well, we don't have to really touch that for 5 years, you know, because we just inspected it. So we kind of said, okay, well, we'll start phasing it back in. So in 2021, we did a storm sewer CCTV. That's really when we started the storm. We started storm sewer, I think 19 or maybe 20. But in 2021, we did an inspection, and it was a relatively smaller one. It was only 38 pipe segments. So this year we did like 70. And it just is a matter of just where things are in the village, you know, because you don't want to hopscotch all over. You just want to be efficient with where you set up and do stuff. As the mayor mentioned, we didn't develop a project off of that. There were 3 pipe segments in that analysis that we identified. So what we do is the contractor, we give them a scope of work and we say, we want you to clean and televise these specific pipe segments. And then what you do is when you televise it is you actually send a camera down on a little truck and it records everything, and the guy's sitting there in the truck controlling it, and then like when he sees things he'll stop and he'll make the camera pan and he narrates it, you know, it's like, okay, you know, we're 123 feet downstream, there's a pipe crack at 4 o'clock. And so then they give us these reports and they give us the video, and we have a group of people in our company, primarily they're not local. We use a guy out of Lawrence, Kansas. We give them all the information from the contractor. And then we grade the pipe. We score it as a grade A through F, and it's like a school grade. A is the best, F is the worst. And then we give it a priority, basically, there's a 0 in there, but it's basically 1 through 4. And 1 is, it needs to be addressed as soon as you can get to it. 4 is basically, just continue monitoring it, there's nothing to be concerned about. In 2021, we identified 3 pipe segments that had a priority 1, which again means you should try to get to it as soon as you can. But they were just like, one of them was we just couldn't complete the inspection. So we're like, well, okay, I mean, really what you have to do is you have to go in there and basically cut out this piece of pipe to then finish the inspection. But what we saw was fine, so we're like, okay, well, there's probably no point in spending. To do a point repair, to basically go out, dig through pavement or whatever, cut out a piece of pipe, put in a new piece of pipe, put in backfill it, it generally costs about $10,000 for each one of those. So we're like, well, that's not a good use of $10,000. And then you start looking at the other 2 priority ones that we identified, and it's like, well, this one is pretty good except for maybe like 12 feet of pipe. So is it worth doing if we don't have a big project to bring them out there? So in consultation with the village, and I think, 2001, mayor was mayor in 2001. So
2021?
Yeah, 2021.
I was gonna say, that would have been way too long for me to think
Even
about.
I wasn't here in 2001. But
You were dreaming of coming here though.
I had just started at my company
Yeah.
23 years ago yesterday.
Wow, congratulations.
So
You made it.
that's when I got out of contracting and came into engineering. But we said, okay, we don't think there's a project. There aren't enough deficiencies to really justify creating a project for a contractor. So we said, let's put this off to the side and then let's see what we find in 2022. Well, 2022 was interesting because we've used the same company to do our CCTV, to do our cleaning and televising. We've used the same company since I've been here, which is 2005. So we've never,
Flowline.
they were named Flowline. We never had any problems with them or anything. Good pricing, very responsive. Lots of times the mayor would have an emergency, be like, hey, we have a sinkhole maybe over here, can you please go? And they would be out there within a day. Well, in 2022, they ended up closing. The guy who owned the company was just like, I'm shutting it down. So we had already released a project to them. They had already given us a price. We had already issued purchase orders. The village had issued purchase orders to them. So we kept delaying it because they were having staffing issues, because they couldn't find people to work. And then basically Scott, the owner, was just like, I'm kind of done. He's like, I'm just shutting it down. So he told us, he's like, hey, just so you know, I'm not gonna get to your work this year. He's like, I'm gonna shut the company down on December 31st, 2022, and just figure out something. So it was too late in the year to really worry about it. So then what we decided to do is to say, okay, well, we're just gonna shift the entire cleaning and televising program back 1 year. So we were just like, we're not gonna do anything in 2022, we're just gonna take everything and shift it back 1 year. Well, in talking with the mayor and the fiscal officer said, well, we already have the money budgeted. So rather than delay everything by a year, can we do 2 years worth in 2023 and then stay on track? So what we did in 2023 is we released a project that had basically double what we would normally do in a year. So we did 2022's planned sewers and 2023's planned sewers in 2023, so we could stay on track. So that one was a little different. We actually put that project out on the street, like we had a public bid for it because we didn't know who would be interested in it. We weren't exactly sure how much it would cost, so we weren't sure if we were going to be under the bidding threshold. So we put that one out for public bid. Village got 6 bids, I think. We got a very, very good price from a local company called, the company is called Visu Sewer, VISU-Sewer. They actually purchased a company here locally that I've dealt with since 2001. They're headquartered in Milwaukee, I think. They did really good work for us. They got us the information. We went through the inspection and we just delivered the reports for that within the last, I think we did like right at the end of last week maybe. So the sewers for this year, or for what we inspected in 2023, just in general they're in good shape. For the sanitary sewer, we identified
Like 4 good shape?
predominantly floors. Yeah, so for the sanitary sewer, we didn't have any priority ones. And let me see if I can. Forgot to plug in my mouse. So for the sanitary sewer, 73% of the pipes were grade A, 8% was grade B, and 19% were grade C. So nothing really of concern in the sanitary sewer. The storm sewer wasn't quite as good, but it was still pretty good. We have 66% are A, 13% are B, 20% are C, and then 1% was D. 1% was one pipe. So we have one pipe that's graded as a grade D. We have one priority 1 segment in the thing. So they're really, even if you go back to the 2021 analysis, there isn't anything that we see that's like we should do a project tomorrow. But I think there is enough there now that we could probably generate a project in the $100,000 to $150,000 range, and we could address a lot of issues before they become real issues. So I think if the village could, if you could consult with fiscal, there's a significant amount of money, if I recall correctly. I didn't pull up the budget, but we've had good money in the sanitary sewer fund. We've been building up the storm sewer fund, but I think it's in pretty decent shape too, because we transferred a significant amount of money a few years ago from the water fund and the sanitary fund into the storm sewer fund. Now granted, that storm sewer fund has built the 2021 project and is going to build the 2023 project, so it's not like that money's not being used, but I think between the two, sanitary and storm, we could probably generate a project in the $100,000 to $150,000 range. So if the village is amenable to that, we could prepare a scope and a fee for our effort, and then identify pipes, and then we could just put it out on the street and get a bid.
Yep. Anybody have any?
No, when I saw the 2018 and that 20% is in a C, I'm like, it's gonna come up on a D soon.
Yeah, and that's
almost 25% of.
And that's why we try to, when we can, if there's, we obviously want to address the priority ones, and we obviously want to address the Ds and the Fs. Yeah. But once you bring the contractor out here, that's the biggest cost, is getting him out here. So what we try to do is, it might only be a priority 3, but if it's like, if we can do it because he's here, now all of a sudden it's going to be a priority 4 for the next probably 30 years. So we try to identify opportunities to head off problems before they become bigger problems. Because what ends up happening is, if we're not careful, then all of a sudden the street collapses, and then it becomes a $50,000 emergency to make one repair.
Right.
And you're running detours around and you're scrambling and trying to authorize legislation.
It's
And
chaos.
in fairness, in the past, the village didn't have the money to do some of the things that we're doing. So it's nice that at this point, we've been able to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we were reactive for so many years.
Yeah, it was just the hand that the village had been dealt. You know, I mean, it was a lot of, the village made a lot of significant strides when MI came online. Because you got tap fees, and you got water connection fees, and then, about halfway through, I think the village realized, oh, we don't have a storm sewer connection fee. So then you started getting storm sewer connection fees. And so those, you know, I mean, that revenue, the revenue generated by those connection fees from the MI Homes development was, I think it was between $1 million and $2 million,
Yeah.
which has gone into significant infrastructure improvements
Yes.
that the village could not afford previously.
Yeah, we work with a guy named Ben. He's our grant writer. He has been phenomenal at helping us get some. We were able to get, one of them was 0% interest. Were they both zero or
I think
one
they
was
were-
one?
One might have been 1%.
1%. The other one was 0%
But-
interest. So, that's how we were able to get some of these projects done. And, you know, right now we're spending, it's a significant amount of money to televise, do the televising, have it analyzed, all of the things that go into it, and that's just gonna be an every year cost. So there's
Catching up on 50 years of
Yeah.
delayed maintenance.
I mean, I don't, so in addition, since we turned in this report, the mayor and Stacy know Randall Berkeley is an engineer in our.
I was actually talking about Randall. I said, you will hear Randall's name, you will never see Randall.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way.
He is real.
He exists.
I actually just saw him on Sunday. He's putting the finishing touches on our program update. So every year we do an update to say, okay, here's the updated table. So here's how much we recommend you budget in 24, 25, 26, But, so just to give you an idea, as they mentioned, this can add up for both sanitary sewer and storm sewer. We typically recommend that the village budgets about $80,000 to $90,000 per year, just in the cleaning and televising. And that includes our time to analyze it too. So we usually budget about $9,000 to $10,000 a year to analyze it. 2024, when we wrote this last year, we were $39,000 for sanitary with our costs in there. So it's a challenge because it's sort of like, well, do you need to spend it? And you could not, but then all of a sudden maybe you spend a lot more later, so it's kind of like an insurance
It's
program.
sanitary sewer is sewage, correct?
Sanitary sewers are sewage.
And
yes.
stormwater
Is rainwater.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And the village doesn't really, the village has, we eliminated a lot of connections, because there were some storm sewers connected to the sanitary.
Okay.
We eliminated a lot of those. They're not, it's better than the other direction, right? Because then the sanitary just goes into your.
Yeah, so I was a homeowner's claims adjuster, so I used to go into people's homes and I have to go to Cincinnati sometimes. And they're hilly and their stuff was always intermingling. And
So
it was terrible.
what's kind of interesting is, the village is old. Like I was saying, the sewers are nearly 100 years old, but you really don't have any combined. Where if you go into older, bigger cities, Cincinnati especially, because they have so many hills, and it was like, well, you can't put pipe everywhere. So, they're continually, spending money to separate. So if you ever hear anybody talking about sewer separation projects, that's what it is. They're basically building a new sanitary sewer or a new storm sewer to separate the flow. Because, like I said, you don't want to send first, if your storm's going into your sanitary, that just means your pipes have to be so much bigger, and that means your treatment plants have to be so much bigger than they need to be, and then that just costs money. But then also the operation and maintenance costs of treating stuff. if you're treating water that doesn't need to be treated, you're just wasting money. So it's a big push for communities to separate those two. So that's why you'll hear things like, you know, City of Columbus is going through a wet weather management program that's, I mean, at one point it was estimated to be like $1.2 billion. And that's why they're building tunnels everywhere, like a lot of tunnels.
I don't know about this,
So,
but sounds interesting.
Yeah, there's a pipe everywhere. Dublin too, is that what they're doing in Dublin? No, right around there, right around Perimeter, somewhere in there?
that one was, they were doing a separation project, I think, over by, they were rerouting a ditch.
Oh my God, I looked at that. I drove past that today, so very curious.
So $80-90 a year annual sanitary sewer, storm sewer budget for CCTV
Yeah, and cleaning.
and cleaning. And cleaning is like a power wash
Very similar. Yeah, they take a jet.
on the bot.
They take,
like in
they
hose.
take a jet and they just have a high-powered jet that just goes through the pipe.
I'm adding to my YouTube
And
catalog
it-
for later, right?
And it,
I'm sure it'll be
I keep
somewhere.
thinking about colonoscopy.
that's exactly
Same
what,
thing, yeah.
that's pretty much what it
It's
is.
the village's cult.
I mean,
Village is over 50.
it is,
gotta get
this-
one.
it is, that's basically what you're watching.
Okay,
Um,
fair enough.
But you usually don't see the jetting, but there will be videos of jetting. But
I'm sure there's
but
gonna be
what-
videos.
But what we get is the actual televising after it's been cleaned.
Okay.
So they have to blast it clean so they can get the camera down. And then, so there's cleaning, which is just kind of like, by definition, it's 3 passes, up to 3 passes of the water jet.
Okay.
If it takes more than 3, then it's what's called heavy cleaning, and they get paid more for the heavy cleaning. So we usually make an allowance of 20%. That's a good rule of thumb. You say, if I'm gonna do 1,000 feet of pipe, I'm gonna allow 200 feet of heavy cleaning. So it's kind of like a contingency item that we put in there, so it's priced. And then if they don't have to do any heavy cleaning, then they don't get paid for it. And then that's money that just the village doesn't have to pay. Sometimes we use it, like, oh, we have to do more inspections, so.
Okay.
But, yeah. And then they take that material, there's a dump site, that the city of Columbus lets contractors use a specific dump site if they're cleaning sewers associated with their system. So Minerva Park is considered kind of like a pseudo extension of the city of Columbus.
So if we dredged our lakes and put them in our sewers, I'm just
You would,
That's not the worst idea.
yeah, you would probably go to jail, actually, I think is
Okay,
what
we're
would.
doing it at night then.
Got it.
I'm just kidding, for the record.
I want to be very clear, I was kidding.
You should be very clear, that was a joke.
That was, ooh.
So we can target a project,
We should.
And
We should
then-
target a project.
make it, worthwhile, and we'll look at both the sanitary and the storm. Sanitary is in pretty good shape, so I don't really anticipating having to do much, because we knocked out a lot of problems with the sanitary. Storm is just, that's the one that we've addressed the least, but, I mean, we've done a storm sewer lining project in 2020, I think. We did the 2001 or 2021 storm sewer project. We're doing a 2023 storm sewer project. So, I mean, the village has expended
Trying.
about 500-ish, between $500,000 and $600,000 in capital projects on storm sewer. Trying to just kind of catch
Never
up.
See it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the goal,
Yeah, the goal is no problem.
to never see them.
Yeah. Yeah, so, okay. I mean, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about that?
So tonight is really focused on sewer. So streets, I assume, is under the street, which is mostly the sewer, right? And then
Yeah.
surface?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's another
I think
one,
Tommy
yeah.
has there's kind of like a rule of thumb chart from.
Yeah, so it says streets makes recommendations for street repair, construction, maintenance programs, refuse collections, mosquito control, leaf pickup, and snow removal.
That's actually
Maybe that's
all
under
changed,
services.
Yeah, it's
so, yeah. So we do, the quick version is we do the trash every 3 years. So we just did that one, so that one's done. Leaf, we do every year, we're trying to get that just done. We have some ideas and thoughts on that. That was removed from streets because streets was
Streets have a lot going
Bumper.
on.
You're
Streets
inundated
have a lot
with.
going on.
Streets has, I mean, we have been doing, and it's, everything got switched to streets when, I'm just gonna say it, when I was on
Yeah.
it. So before, you know, when I got on there, they decided to put everything with me because honestly, I did it. I mean, it was that simple. But it gets to the point that there's other committees that literally services does the leaf contract and the, trash, and that's only done once every 3 years. So the committees are still a little lopsided when it comes to, you know, exactly how and what we do with that. The other thing that Streets does is.
Street name
wait,
signs, safety
mosquito.
signs?
The other part with mosquito is that basically just went to administration, so I handle that every single year. That is just a program that we use for, we do it through Franklin County, and we have traps, and we only do it when there is West Nile. We do not spray just to spray, which is what we used to do. We do not do that now. So that has pretty much been taken, I don't want to say it's been taken away from council. If council ever wants to discuss it and say we're not spraying anymore, but at this point it's a contract through Franklin County that we use, and it is only done in the event of West Nile. So we do it, in my opinion, I have zero interest in stopping it, only because it's for the health and safety of the residents. I know that people get very upset about, you know, the killing of butterflies and those types of things, but that is just something Streets doesn't really do now either. It's on autopilot.
Okay, interesting.
Before it wasn't like that. We actually went through Blendon Township. It was a different scenario. We would decide how many sprays, and there was more to it. So now it's just
Spray one,
that. Yeah, now it's just it's more of an administrative type thing at this point because there's not been anybody say we don't want to do spraying anymore. We want to do it when necessary. So yeah, this committee does. Is there anything else this one does?
It says maintain trees on right of way, street right of ways.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I mean that's one of those that.
Yeah, I'd venture to guess that, like you had said, Mary, we know some of those things have actually shifted over to other.
Where does the lakes go? Where are lakes?
I think that's service.
Is it? I don't know where lakes.
Because it
I
used
think
to.
it's actually Jason now.
I think it might be Jason's got a lot going on. too.
Yeah, and then that
Maybe we
committee
should-
also has a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, maintenance of lakes, parks and parks.
Should we?
That's another
Should we
conversation
get-
that.
Well, and I mean, if you want to get super technical,
Yeah,
it's
Technically-
technically the storm sewer system.
right, so technically that could be,
The
Yes.
lakes.
I have a lot of power.
Do we have?
Because it does say under,
Yeah.
which one is that? Is that recreation?
This is, yeah.
It's recreation and parks. You guys call it recreation and parks?
No, don't even ask.
But
I can't ever say it
It
right.
should be Parks and Rec, in my opinion.
That's what-
Recap.
That's what the
Recap.
city of Columbus calls theirs, recreation and parks. It actually does say lakes/ponds.
Glorify
Yeah.
rainwater collection pools.
No, what was I calling them? They're,
Do you have anything
urban
on that?
stormwater.
Yeah.
Not the lake project in itself, but the thing that
I like it.
soil testing.
Yeah, I do, kind of.
I mean, if you're not ready to talk
No,
about it.
no, I have
Okay.
a voicemail message from CTL, the company that's gonna do it, and I just didn't get a chance to return it today. He actually says he probably has this is combining topics for a second, but he has a drilling rig that he can probably bring over to the village next week to do the soil borings for the maintenance building. But he was asking if he could push back the soil sampling in the lakes because it's getting cold. And so I haven't had the heart to, I didn't have the time, and I'm trying to build up the heart to tell him no. That's the most important thing right now. I'm sorry that it's cold, but I'm gonna need you to go out in cold water and do this.
How about you go out when it's -1? That sounds like a fun idea.
So I'm just gonna tell him I need him to get to it as quickly as he can. I'm almost done with my scope and my fee to do all the other stuff that we talked about. So, we have to do the wetland delineation.
Yes.
So I have the level of effort from our permitting people. I'm just waiting on, and I have an email message from my dredging people. That was the last piece of information I needed to just get that scope and fee set and get it over to you. So I'm hoping to actually get you the scope and the fee for that by the end of next week.
Okay.
Because we need to get the wetland delineation done just to confirm that it's not a wetland, but that it is a jurisdictional body of water. I think that's what we're gonna,
Yeah.
we all anticipate that's what it is, but we just need to confirm that's what it is.
Audrey will confirm.
There's a lot of big words right there.
Yes.
Yeah, so, is,
Jurisdictional.
if
Body of water
the
versus-
lakes are considered jurisdictional, I think it's called water,
Okay.
jurisdictional water bodies, I think is what it's technically called. That means that to do any work in there, we have to get a permit from the US Army Corps of Engineers.
So it's a protected species.
Because they're considered to be waters of the United States.
Would they like to fix them?
Exactly.
Yeah, but they'll tell us too.
Tell us how to.
Yeah. Is that true of, and I haven't seen them, I apologize, but I hear there are like little ponds in the new area
Yes.
or something?
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume the lakes are the only really like protected necessarily.
Those are
little
just,
ponds.
Little ponds.
those are just drainage basins, they're
Okay,
detention
okay,
ponds.
Okay.
The reason that these two ponds is because when the dam was built, on the downstream of the dam, there's a run called the Kilbourne Run, so a little creek, stream. If we didn't dam this up, that would run through the village. And so then the whole legal, not battle, but the legal interpretation is, well, does the North Lake consider to be a jurisdictional water body? And we think the answer is yes, because it's hydraulically connected to the South Lake. And so the North Lake wouldn't exist if the South Lake weren't dammed. So because of that, to do what we're considering doing, we have to get an individual permit rather than a nationwide permit. An individual permit takes 12 months. So there's a lot going on over there.
Fair enough.
So in the strictest sense, it's a storm sewer, but it's technically under recreation and parks currently. So that's up to you if you want to grab it or.
Want to. Because Jason's got a lot going on.
I know.
Yeah,
Well, and
because-
almost, I think
Maybe we can share it.
I think the conversation needs to be whether or not it goes to more like services or something, because again, and whoever,
Yeah.
everybody can still switch what committees they want on, if there's, there can still be that discussion. But services really does just have the trash contract and the leaf contract. The leaf contract, I think we're gonna have pretty much set, and we have one person that typically bids on it. That person, the people that we had two, one of them is no longer doing it. So really, we're just spinning our wheels trying to, get something that's never apparently gonna happen. So we have somebody willing to do it. We have somebody that we're comfortable with the price. We can probably just get it locked in. It's under $50,000, which I think is now $75,000. So it doesn't have to go out to bid. We just did that in general, trying to get someone else. So technically, we don't even have to put that out to bid now. So that committee, has absolutely nothing to do once we just get an invoice from the leaf person.
I'm
That's
also
it.
happy to do it because I'm nosy. So.
And for
I
the,
think it overlaps with a couple other.
It does.
and you brought up a good point. So for the 2024 CCTV work, we're just gonna recommend that. I'm going to recommend that we just use Visu sewer again.
Because as long as it's under the.
The price was
75.
good.
Yep.
And we can have a storm sewer project and a sanitary sewer project. Neither one will be above the bidding threshold. Their prices were solid.
Okay. Don't rock it, I guess, or what's
Yeah.
to say, the enemy of good is better. So if we try to find something better, maybe we'll lose what we have, good thing going on.
They were responsive, they were good, their
Yeah.
price was good.
Okay.
I mean, the trick is we always spot check them, so I mean, we're not averse to getting another price and be like, oh, they're still good.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, because you did mention this, we do have two streets projects that we're working on currently. One of them is redesigning, reconstructing the intersection, reconstructing Maplewood Drive from Cleveland Avenue to Lakewood Drive. So that pavement has been graded as failing for
Wow.
a while now. The challenge had always been the most efficient way to fix that intersection is to shut down the intersection. But the southern portion of the village has no other way into it until the MI Homes development came. And now we have
Options.
an access point from the east that we didn't have before. So that project has been kicked around by the village for probably, it's almost 6 years now. We've been talking about doing it, but it's just,
What's the shutdown time frame? Sorry to interrupt you.
I mean, it would probably have to be shut down for like 3 weeks maybe.
Okay. Sold.
Tis but a pittance.
I mean,
It's small work.
so we're striving to have that project biddable by the end of February.
Is that a this year thing? Is that something that we're doing this year?
It's budgeted, it's in the budget to do
Okay.
the construction this year.
Okay.
With that project, we are also bidding complete reconstruction of Valley, is it Drive? I can never remember, the road into the
Valley.
pool.
Valley Lane.
No,
Lane?
it's Valley Road.
Valley,
Valley.
included in that project is a complete reconstruction of that road.
It's terrible too. Is it failing?
It's the worst graded road in the village, actually. But again, it's sort of like you only can do it basically September 2nd through when the asphalt plants close in November. And then from when the asphalt plants open in March or April to Memorial Day. Those are your only times to get that done.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be doing it while the pool is open.
Correct.
So we're going to bid that in spring, but we're not going to be able to do that until after Labor Day because we're not going to be able to get that done before Memorial Day. Plus the village isn't, we don't know if the village can afford it. So we're going to do that as a bid alternate. And if the price is right and the village can afford it, we'll look to do it after Labor Day. The second project we're working on, which is programmed to be constructed in 2025, is a complete reconstruction of Minerva Lake Road from Farview east to State Route 3. We won't go all the way to State Route 3 because ODOT has a project on State Route 3 that's going to wrap around a little bit onto Minerva Lake Road, so we'll just connect where they end. But that program or that project, we're looking to do that in 2025. We're going to design it now. And the reason we're going to design it now is so that we know how much that project should cost in 2025 because we'll be done. So we'll be able to prepare an opinion of probable construction costs for 2025. We'll have the bid in for the Maplewood Drive reconstruction. We'll know how much, we'll have the bid in for the Valley Road reconstruction. So we'll know how much money the village has left in the road fund. We know how much money we're getting from some permissive fees that we're collecting from like, I think driver's licenses and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so then
What we were
we'll,
talking about last night.
so then we'll know how much money the village can put toward that project, and then we will probably pursue an OPWC grant for the difference. But the trick here is usually the village pursues full grants or full loans. But in this instance, we're going to try to put some skin in the game and say, you know, this project is X, you know, the village can contribute Y, so we only need, you know, Z from OPWC. And that usually helps you with the scoring, because if you're willing to contribute funding,
Yeah.
you know, they look favorably upon that. Now that project, I mean, I know the mayor and Stacy have heard this number, but I mean, that project is an $800,000 to $1 million project.
And
Because it's a complete reconstruction
of Minerva Lake?
Minerva Lake Road from Farview down to State Route 3.
Okay.
So that's that's completely tearing up the road, going all the way down to sub-base, addressing all the sub-base problems, putting in new storm sewers because there's no storm sewer on the road. Building a new road, building
have
curb
curbs.
and gutter. And that project also includes a shared use path from,
Elementary school.
basically from Minerva Lake, or roughly from State Route 3 up to Farview.
I love curbs. I don't know why I love curbs so much, but I just feel like it's like,
They're
Safety.
helpful. They,
as my kid walks to school or whatever, I'm like, I want more curbs because I want cars to go, ah.
and so, and one of the reasons, like you mentioned your kid walking to school, that's why we're trying to focus on, like even on the Maplewood Drive project, where even though we're not doing all of Maplewood, but for that stretch, we're putting in new sidewalk. You know, for Valley, we have a shared use path planned to be built as part of Valley, so that, you know, eventually we'll get all these paths connected throughout the village.
Yeah.
And then, you know, people going to the swimming pool don't have to walk in the street. So we're trying to get that path on Minerva Lake Road, because now we have Hawthorne, we have Minerva France, we have whatever the middle school is called.
Minerva Middle.
Minerva Middle. So, you know, I mean, before we just had
We're
Hawthorne.
very creative.
We just had Hawthorne, but you know, now we're trying to connect, you know, we have all these schools that we didn't, you know, we have 3 schools when we used to have 1.
I think it's so important. Just because so many people working from home these days, and you know, you really are living and working in the same place, and to be able to walk in the neighborhood, and it's a podium that I don't need to stand on, but I just.
No, it's important to a lot of people, I think, again, with the kids, the amount of kids that are walking. I hate walking, I hate watching them walk down the middle, down the middle of the road, or, you know, dodging the cars and all of that, but where do you expect them to go?
Yeah, I don't really have much of a
If they're,
choice in a lot of
if they're
places.
trampling through someone's yard, then you're gonna have that issue.
Excellent.
Anything else you can think of that you're working on?
Not for Streets Committee.
Yeah.
We did close out a few tasks, so we task order, you'll see after the next invoice that we send, and then the next time you guys pay that invoice, we're gonna close task order 14, so that's good, that's the Westerville City School task order that's been open forever. We're closing out task order 26, which is the lakes up to this point, because we're gonna open a new task order. I coordinated that with fiscal. It's just better for everybody to do a new task order. We're still making some GIS improvements, like I had mentioned. We're finishing this report, or the new program documents. We are updating GIS based on so every time we do the CCTV analysis, we update. All that information goes into GIS. So you will be able to click on a pipe, and you'll see the last time it was inspected, its last grade, all of that stuff will be available. So every time we do that, Randall updates that database. So we're doing that. We're also working with the planning director on the planning and zoning map. I need just one more thumbs up from him to make sure that the because I think the planning and zoning map got adopted at the end of the year, right? Based on
Yes.
the code that was chapters 12
It takes
and 14.
effect on the 15th.
I can't remember.
Yep.
So I think I just need to talk to Eric and just get the last thumbs up on that, and then we'll probably close that task pretty soon. 2023 storm sewer, hopefully close that task relatively soon. CCTV's done.
Who's in charge of paths? I thought that was going to.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty much all streets and
What's the life expectancy of a road? How long do they last? Is that like a 25-year thing?
How are you driving? That's the first question.
Oh.
Usually
Not
when you're doing the useful life spreadsheet for OPWC,
Yeah.
they just, rule of thumb is 15 years.
Okay.
Like, you should repave it in 15 years, not a complete reconstruction.
Yeah.
But you should.
Surface level resurfacing.
Yep.
Kinda.
Yep. It's called like kind of like a mill and fill.
Yeah.
So like if you've ever driven over, like when the planing machine comes through and
Yeah.
takes off the top, and then you just have that annoying.
Little, yeah.
Washboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I hate that.
Oh, they're fun. I was thinking of those, and I know this is streets, and I'm glad I just thought of it, like, that's, sometimes I think about that instead of speed bumps, having like the
Don't pay.
the rumble
Rumble
strips.
strips.
Yeah, just something that goes, oh, what's going on? I know it is.
Not to, we're obviously almost at 8:30, but I was gonna ask, just so they know, or at least a little bit of information, so that was, only because we're talking about paths right now.
Yeah.
The walking paths over in the new section. There's a couple bridges over there that you had given a little bit of information about. I don't know that they know anything about it. But the other thing I think that we're gonna have to start talking about is, like you were just talking about, you only have to repave so often, but if you walk over the walking path, and I highly encourage it once you're able to, go walk through the walking path. There are, I don't wanna call them weeds and stuff, but there's basically some weeds and stuff that are growing
Yeah.
through the asphalt, and it's now tripping hazards. And I don't wanna sound dramatic, like people are gonna die, but they are tripping hazards when you are, you know, if you're trying to use a walker or anything like that, or just not paying attention, and they're
Going
getting,
through on your skateboard.
yeah, your
Little
skateboard.
scooters.
You know, sprinkle my business.
So if you haven't been over there, or you haven't walked through there over the next couple months, as the weather gets warmer, that's gonna be a new topic that I think we're gonna have to talk about. I don't know if we're just gonna have to cut out sections, because the walking path in itself is in really good shape, but there are a couple pieces that are probably gonna need some attention, and then you can talk, I think,
Hot
for,
patch.
maybe just tell them that anything about the $1 million for, the cart, they were like the cart path, like the
Yeah,
bridges.
so what happened was when MI Homes purchased the golf course, it was decided to leave as much of the cart paths in place and just let them act as walking paths. And there were 2 bridges in there that,
Is there 3? There's 3, right?
One,
well, I think there were
One
2.
by the dam, one by the concrete overway murals, so, that, you know, and then one over the other section.
There were 2 that I think were left over. I think we might have added one.
Okay.
Maybe, but they need to be replaced. They're in very bad shape. Like, they weren't made for pedestrians. They were made for golf carts. And if you look at them, they're not even safe for golf carts. Like, they were those ones where basically, like, you could tell a guy and some of his buddies probably built this bridge over the creek because the railing's like this tall above the thing. So just enough so like a golf cart wheel can't jump it, basically. So, we were asked to take a look at those and provide a recommendation about, you know, the first question was, should the village hire someone to do a more in-depth structural analysis of the bridges? And we went out there and said, it's not even worth your money, they just need to be replaced. So then we wrote a little technical memorandum, a tech memo with some recommendations of like what type of bridges we think you could put out there. And as the mayor alluded to, so everyone thinks they're small, but the bridges are like 30 feet long. Because the creek isn't that big, like that's the run I mentioned earlier, that's Kilbourne Run. Well, what we recommended is to not do any work in the creek. So, you know, if you step back outside the creek so you're not disturbing the creek, now all of a sudden these bridges become, 20 feet long, 30 feet long. And the quotes from the manufacturers, they're like $400,000 bridges.
Oh my gosh.
So,
So then there's that.
extra decks, we're taking donations.
and those are like your typical modern pedestrian bridge. So if you go out into many suburban communities with bike paths, like there are those bridges that you would see, they're just prefabricated, they make them in the shop, bring them out on a truck, build the concrete, place concrete, build the piers and everything, and then they just set the bridge on and then go. So there's 2 of those. Those have come up in other situations, or as people have brought up those bridges and, like to put in a walking path from Jordan Road, there's some serious conversation that needs to be had because, if the North Lake remains a lake, you have 2 significant bodies of water you have to cross the North Lake to get to Minerva Lake Road with a path. It's just a matter of if you're crossing it in the west-east direction or if you're crossing it in the north-south direction. But each one of those is probably, a 500, if those bridges are 350 to 400,000, those bridges are probably $500,000 to $600,000 bridges because you're crossing 40 feet of water, you know, so there's a whole, I think, and I made this comment before, and I feel like you're getting really close to this point where it's probably time to have a comprehensive connectivity plan. Where you just say, here are the main points we want to, where do we want pedestrians to be able to go? We want you to be able to get to the municipal building, we want you to be able to get to the pool, we want you to be able to get to the 3 elementary schools. Those are the primary locations, because I mean, if you say the municipal building, I get you the municipal building, I get you the gazebo or the pavilion or whatever. But then it also lets you connect into the subdivision, and then that technically gets you to the basketball court and the park shelter and stuff like that. But, you know, getting basically on this side of the street lets you get
A lot.
to there. So there are primarily like 5 main destinations in the village. Well, you really can't get to very many of them from anywhere without walking in streets. And, you know, the council has had a lot of conversation about the path from the subdivision down to Minerva Lake Road. You
There's
know,
the pool, is that what you're talking about?
no, the one through the,
Or to Valley
by
Road.
the Thitoff property.
Yes.
Yeah, so, there's that, you know, we've had a lot of conversation about getting from Jordan Road over to Minerva Lake Road. And I think one of the reasons I really think we're at that point is because it helps you with grant funding. Like if you can demonstrate, we have a plan, we're working toward it, here's what we're trying to do, it can help, because on something like this, you know, like on the streets projects, we pretty much target MORPC and OPWC grants because they're really the only ones that are giving grants for street projects. And you try to combine things, so like, you know, if we do Minerva Lake Road, we're putting a storm sewer in there, that gets you more points because you're doing a couple of different things, you're addressing a few problems. But when you get into things like walking paths or shared use paths or whatever phrase you want to use, there are a bunch of different options. You know, you have safe routes to school. So if you can say you're providing paths so that kids can get to schools safer, there's a whole program associated with it. But the problem is you have to have a dedicated program. So, you know, I think we need to reach out. I think Eric is talking to them maybe. Talking to Westerville City Schools to see if they've incorporated the 3 Minerva Park schools into their Safe Routes to School program. And if not, make sure that gets incorporated because that can help with the funding. There's OPWC money, there is some ODOT money, there's this potential, I guess, for this CODA funding, you know, but that's not until 2025 maybe, so,
It's
you know,
coming up.
so who knows what's going on with that, so I mean, but the nice thing is, if you have a plan, you can say like, look, this is what we're trying to do, we're not just scattershot looking for money.
Yeah.
I think maybe we need to add that to a planning session.
There's America
Yeah.
Walks, remember that one I think I
Yeah.
told you about, like the America
Yeah.
Walks, where they just give like 8 grants at the end of the year. And some of them, you look at them and it's like, they gave grants, I think, to like build bike racks, you know, because they're just like, well, we want people to, they're organizations that focus on non-motor vehicle transportation.
Yeah.
And
It's
they'll,
probably more and more important.
it's out there, you know, so I think it's a good idea. And it, you know, and you guys haven't heard my spiel about this, but I know the mayor and Stacy have, where, you know, most of the things that I recommend that you do, my company can do. But I am never bashful about saying like, hey, we can do it, but you know, maybe there's someone local, because our person might be in Minneapolis or something. Or like maybe there's someone who is more in tune with some local resources that's probably better for you. So, you know, I bring this up not to say, hey, give me more work. I mean, we could do it for you, but you know, I think it's worth at least discussing the idea and then determining who can do the plan for you.
To-do list.
Awesome. Safe routes to school.
So, path.
So many moving pieces.
I know.
And usually when you leave anything with Mike Flickinger, your head will spin for 3 days. That's why we don't bring him to meetings anymore.
You should have met me last night. I just had to leave.
It's a lot. It's,
Yeah.
like, it's,
What?
it gets easier though. I
What
mean, it
No,
really
I
does.
know. It's,
Yeah.
And when I started, now we're getting off topic, but when I started, I didn't know the difference between a storm sewer and a sanitary sewer. I thought there was one sewer. I didn't know, I had no idea there were two different ones. Like, I had to Google, like, why is everybody talking?
Yeah.
You learn.
no, I
think
thought I
it's-
know, but I think I was right, but I was like, I want to make sure. Like, I don't want to just sit here and
No.
pretend that I know what I'm talking about.
No, I mean, it took a good, I mean, honestly, a good probably 2 years before you can wrap your head. Now I can talk about projects and think people are following me because I mean, it's, you know what's going on after but again, you miss 1 or 2 meetings, in fairness, you fall behind pretty quick. So that's why it's very important that if you are not able to come to one of the meetings that Mike is at, that you do try to listen to it, because now just imagine us talking about these different projects, and the other members are just they're gonna try to go with your recommendation, but, I mean, these are large projects, these are things that are very important to all of the residents, that our sewers are in functioning order. This is probably, I don't wanna say where we spend the most amount of money, because, I know we spend a lot at the pool, but we really probably spend way more here. But it's your infrastructure. Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it's,
saying that it's not glamorous.
no, it's not.
And
Nobody
there's-
wants to do it.
And I always have a rolling, basically checklist on my machine. Like, we haven't even touched on things that the village probably also needs to be focusing on. Like, we had to develop a capacity management and operation plan, like CMOM. That was part of the findings and orders. It's due to be updated.
Which ones did we just update like 3 months ago? So you also.
Oh, that was the MS4.
We have the MS4 and we have the SWMP.
Yep, MS4,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
fine.
it's basically for separate sewer systems. So municipal, small, separate. I forget. There's 4 S's. Everyone just calls it MS4. There's a SWIP.
Yes.
SWPPP, which is Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan.
Those are all fun reports that do not take 5 minutes, and that's all falls on me.
There's
It's not.
there's the annual SSO, so sanitary sewer overflow, and WIB, water and basement.
We found that some of these reports hadn't been done since 2016. Because nobody was doing them then, which of course, if they weren't doing them then, I didn't know anything about them.
Oh my gosh.
And usually you'll get like a little tickler full letter from EPA, like, hey, we haven't gotten your report yet. And you're like, oh, what's this? So there's a few of those. There's the CMOM that will need to be updated soon. The SSES, you're probably about 5-ish years from maybe having to do that again. There's the
I knew
emergency response plan.
Yeah, we're dealing with that right now.
That is for the SSOs, that I know it's out of date because the contact names that were in there at Ohio EPA have retired.
Okay.
And then some of the people that are in there, I think the report still probably technically says Lynn, it still probably technically, it might still say Chief Nussi, so what we've tried to do when we update those things is we've tried to eliminate names
Okay.
and just
That makes
use
sense.
titles. So we don't have to update
That
those
makes
things as
sense.
frequently.
Yes. So yeah, this is, there's a lot that goes into it. I think that it's very entertaining. You learn a lot.
I do like the idea of moving some things to services.
No, I think
Oh
it's,
my God.
it's an extreme amount. The problem is it's an extreme amount to put into one committee meeting. And I think that's the issue that you have is, you're now a little over an hour and a half that everybody's been at work all day. You want to make sure that you can go into a committee meeting and actually go through everything and walk out of here being able to retain it. So when, I mean, there's, there's a lot. If we wanted to start talking about lakes, if that was part of this, then you would just be here for days.
I mean, you were at the last presentation I did for lakes. That was just lakes.
Yeah,
And I was there for 2.5 hours.
That was spicy too.
I feel like I'm still there.
Well, and I
Boy,
think,
that was a
That
fun
was
one
spicy
too.
one.
and I
I
think
was
part
told that
of,
was stupid.
part of lakes though, a lot of times we'll just do an actual, we bring him in and just, regardless of whose committee it falls on. And we do this, I don't wanna say quite often, but we'll do an actual lakes presentation. Like, this is, as you guys are fully aware, the lakes is the hot topic, and not even a hot topic, it's the project that is next. So it's, what do we do, how do we do it, how do we finance it, how do we make it make sense with the least amount of impact for the least amount of people. And it's, there's a lot to be discussed. There's not going to be an easy answer to any of it. Because, I mean, one of the answers is do nothing. And one of the answers is
Do everything.
you can't, hit the lottery. I mean, I don't even think a grant writer can help us with that, because you have to make the monthly payments and we can't afford the monthly payments. Or it's that or the pool. So, there's a lot that has to be discussed. There's definitely there's not a win-win on any of that stuff. I mean, you're still, that's gonna be a continued hot topic.
But it sounds like the sewer situation has got like
Yes.
it's got a system
We
of
got a
management
system.
that is
Yeah, we've settled
kind
into
of
a pretty good
rolling
routine.
along,
Yes.
which I really like and I'm happy for, because
Yes.
all I heard when I first moved in here was how it was a challenge.
It is.
Yeah.
The most
And it's gonna remain, I mean, and here's the thing that I always try to remember, and over by your place, there are low spots in a lot of places. There are issues that still remain in people's yards, that is, whose issue is it? Who does this? Who does that? What can we do? Can we help? And sometimes we just, and I'm gonna go back on it. I have a feeling I know exactly who you're talking about, when you were asking that question. And at the end of the day, that's where the water runs.
And I mean, and we had, I mean, because you have public money, and we're always trying to make sure that someone isn't benefiting like privately from public money. We've, we had Jesse,
Yeah.
so we had legal counsel. It might have been Gene at the time. I can't remember for sure now, but we had legal counsel like basically write a memo, just a short memo to define like the boundaries of the sewer system. Because if you look in legislation, it would basically say like, the village is responsible for the municipal sewer system. So, but where does that stop? Like, if I'm a resident and there's a backup, I'm arguing, well, it left my house. Once it leaves my house, that should be your responsibility. When in reality, it's still your responsibility all the way until it connects into the main sewer.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure, like, just in case anybody ever really asked that question, we had a readily available document that you could just put out and be like, here's the legal definition of where the, municipal sewer system ends.
Your responsibility begins.
And so, and that was really what it is, because you get into these situations like water in basement or, and the thing is, like, and what I've always really tried to caution in these situations is that phrase, water in basement, like, it has a very specific meaning according to Ohio EPA.
Yes.
Just water in your basement isn't water in basement. Water in basement means it's a sewer backup into your basement. If it's stormwater, it is lowercase w water, lowercase I in lowercase b basement. But if it's sanitary sewer, it's,
Used to call it like Blackwater, Cat 3
and
water,
so then,
whatever, like.
and like when you, in certain communities, like Columbus has a very specific program. Like if you have water in your basement, like you have to call them within a very specific time. And if you don't contact
And
them
we do,
within that time.
we report them every year. We just did a whole bunch of reports that we thought were done from like 2016, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We just did a whole bunch of those reports, we went through all of the ones. We actually did a search on through KGT to go back through and get every water and basement or anything that discussed water and basement. We went through and did about 8 years of reports for that last year. This, one of the important things to know, and Mike can kind of chime in on this, I've called him many times, and we have someone that says that they have a line and they're getting water in their basement and they're doing this and this and this, and I mean, he has gone to the point of doing the color testing. What is that?
Dye testing.
The dye testing. To date, since I've been here, I've dealt with a lot of people that have called with water in basement, and we always have them televise from their house to the street. I will tell you, Roto-Rooter and all of them blame it on the village every single time.
Every time.
Then he gets involved and says, send me the information, and within a day, it is not the village's,
Yeah.
it is
Well, they're just a guy.
in their,
They're
yes,
just the first guy.
in their
like,
line. To date, since I have been here, we have not had a water in basement in someone's basement since I shouldn't say since I've been here, because that would probably have been different from then,
Yeah.
but since we've started doing the repair work, I am not aware of any village issue. We have not been involved with paying for, dealing with, helping, anything. But if you read some comments or anything like that, you would think that there had been a couple, but we have dealt with them. Mike has got involved, and to this day, we have not had to deal with anything. So the CCTV work is definitely working, the cleaning, all of that. But the biggest thing is they have to televise their line first. Once they do that and make sure that it's not a village issue, then we will get involved, but we have not had to get involved yet.
I still pray before, like if it rains.
Oh, yes.
And that's one of the nice things about this GIS that we have, is because GIS, I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with GIS, but it's a database.
It's a geographical
It's a-
information system.
Exactly, it's a geographical information system. So you can, but it's basically a database that then gives you like a graphical representation. So you can collect a lot of data. So one of the things that a lot of communities do is you start identifying like water and basement. Like if you get a water and basement call, you have like a shaped file for it and you put it into your database, and then all of a sudden you can say, show me all the water and basement calls we've gotten. And then you look and you go, oh man, there's a cluster of water and basement calls. We might have a sewer problem over there. So then you know to go look over there. Or you're getting calls, you get a lot of calls about like flooding streets. It's like, oh man, we got some let's look at that, and oh, there's a water main break or something. So, the village isn't all the way there yet with GIS, and the village will never, I mean, there's no value in the village trying to make it like the most robust GIS thing ever, but like, we're trying to target it for what is to the best use of the village, and so those are things that we're gonna start rolling into it. It's just helpful.
For sure, for the next people in line as well.
Well, and that's, I mean, I know that the mayor and Stacy are probably sick of me saying this, but I mean, I've been here since January 1st, 2005.
Okay.
So there's not a single person now that's in an administrative role or on council. Like I've outlasted everybody. And when you have a smaller community, especially when I first started here, there was a lot of turnover. Like people would move, or people would get on council and then they'd get a promotion and they just don't have the time to devote to it, or they'd get on council and they'd have kids and I guys don't have the time, or they get on council and they move, so then the next person gets appointed, and then a lot of people want to be like, they want to do good for their community, and then they get on it and they're like, oh man, this is like way more work than I thought, and they like ride out a term or something. And so I mean, I can't even imagine how many different iterations of council that I've worked with. I think iterations, I've probably worked with, it has to be like 30 different
Oh, definitely.
iterations of council. But
I can think of, just since I've been here, how many?
yeah, so then what happens is, like you guys were saying, there isn't necessarily, like we're trying to build this repository of information that didn't used to exist, because then, you guys took over for 2 people. Back in the day, that knowledge went out the door with those 2 people. Whereas we're trying to develop it. So yeah, they have some institutional knowledge, but they don't have all the institutional knowledge. So that's why we're trying to do things like GIS. That's why we're trying to make these, like I've really tried to work with the mayor to for us to do things more formally than we used to. Like, we used to just do a lot of stuff via email, which is fine. Like, we'd be like, hey, we're gonna go do this. But I've been trying to work with the mayor for us to just, rather than, do it in email, like, here's a memo, so that you can just file it. So then the next person can just pull that up, and you don't have to be like, oh, did the previous mayor correctly archive their email messages? Now it's just a memo that, so we're really trying to make it so that when you take over on January 1st, the knowledge didn't leave on December 31st.
Makes a lot of sense. That's what I was saying about the sewer stuff. I like that. I'm like, oh, that's really nice.
So,
Do you guys have any questions? I know it's a lot.
Many of them,
It
but
gets
it's
easier. And then, like I said, that's why we don't invite him to meetings anymore, because he talks for 2 hours.
yeah,
I like it.
I'm at the point where like I walk in and people
Sigh.
sigh.
So it hurts his feelings, that's really why I don't do it, because it hurts his feelings. No, it is, I do try to bring him in, at least, we were trying to do like once a quarter or something like that, but maybe once or twice a year, we still like to bring him into the actual council meeting. And in hopes that, if there's people that have questions and I should say, we used to do it more when there were a lot of issues. Now we are, I don't want to say on autopilot and jinx myself, but we really are. We aren't getting the constant, this is what's, we're having problems, and people are really tuned in. I think, for me, it's great that people aren't pounding at the door and coming to, doing all of this, because that means they're content. So when they start, when I don't want to say it's bad when people get involved, but you tend to see that people show up at the meetings a lot more when there's problems.
Yeah, we had some stretches there. Where,
Yeah. So it's nice that people are, that this is not what the issue is, because this is important, this is your house. So it's your property value, it's all of the above. So, making sure that, people can flush their toilets is a high priority for all of us. So, and we thank Mike for that.
Thank you.
try our darndest.
So yes, it is still nice to try to bring him in. That said, he will be here more than that, because we do try to do just like a lakes meeting, or whatever we're talking about at the time. Once we get a little bit closer and get some of the information that he's trying to get for everyone, my plan is to have another lakes meeting in the next couple months.
Yeah.
The residents across the street will be invited to it. I have told them that, just so they can hear it out of the horse's mouth, these are some of the thoughts, these are some of the plans, these are some of the things I don't like. And if they have, it's not for them to come in and, scream and scream and scream. It's really just for them to be able to express maybe, some of their thoughts, some of their, I do think it's important that they do get to hear it, exactly what's going on. And you guys are gonna be the ones that's gonna make the decision. Do you wanna move forward this way? Do you wanna move forward this way? What options? And maybe that's something in the next couple of weeks, we could even get together, even without, if we're not ready to discuss it with them, this isn't a group, and maybe we need to have a couple conversations. These are the options.
Yeah.
These are,
These are the things we're at least considering.
These
so
are- yeah.
The gamut of.
right. And there has not, and I still think this is there hasn't been any decisions made on what is being done. There are some decisions that are, I don't want to say decisions that have been made, but there are some options that I don't believe are feasible options,
Yeah.
because I don't know how you could actually finance that. Now, what can you do to get this option that you could afford to do? That's, and you did present some of those. You don't dig as deep, you don't remove as much, there are still ways to get to a point that you might be able to afford. So, I think it might be wise that in the next couple months that we get that, maybe before March, maybe in the March meeting or something, we bring you back, and hopefully by then we'll have some of the soil testing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's my goal. That's
Yes,
my hope.
like March, yeah. So I think it's important that we get to that point as well.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's important to just have them understand the decision-making process of, I only have wrong answers right now for you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we said in that Lakes meeting where where I even said, look, I knew that like, when I show you this graphic, like, you're going to start talking about it. But that was the purpose, like, I'm gonna show you this graphic, because we have to really think about a lot of different things, and so.
Right, it's not a, yeah, there's not a, unfortunately, he didn't bring a, we're gonna dredge and it's gonna be $1.2 million and you can afford it, and we're gonna, put it out to bid and this is what we're gonna do. It was a, hey, here's $4 million and you can't afford it, but we're gonna talk about it anyways.
Yeah.
And again, it's not to say that we can't invest into, having the grant writer look into different things. There's time restraints, there's a lot with all of that too, that goes into it as well. But if you don't make it by the time restraints, I guess it is what it is. We send the money back. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea what happens.
Jeff is looking into that.
Yes.
He's talking to the people about how that works.
Yeah, because we also don't want to make a rash decision and do something just because. So there's a lot. Ta-da!
Yeah, the lakes are that way.
The lakes are.
There's only
Wrong answers.
wrong
only.
answers, yeah.
Well, but I think for me, it's, and again, this is horrible to say, it's my last thing that I wanted to get done before I'm done. Meaning, the building is done, the sewers are on autopilot, the streets are getting ready to start those projects. And the lakes has been at the top of a priority list for residents for, I'm gonna go 10 plus years, for some 20. But for a majority of the residents, I feel like it's the last thing. I don't have a desire to go one way or another, or, I mean, I've heard the concerns, you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen some of the things. There isn't a good answer, but the only answer I have is to do nothing is not an option. And I'm hoping that that's where we don't end up. But that's been the answer for the last 6 years. We've done nothing because we haven't been able to. So I'm hoping that there is some sort of pathway to get to some direction. What that looks like, I don't know, but I think we can figure it out. I hope.
You know what we're talking about, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I know we're recording, and I just don't want to go off on a bunch of tangents, during the,
No.
and I'll be here for 4 years, so I've got plenty of time to ask questions and that sort of thing. But Lakes right now is under planning and zoning, is that correct?
The lakes, we don't.
No, it's not really, no. I mean, at this point, the meetings that we have had, I have with council, it's really past, and this is, again, like you said, we're recording right now until we adjourn, but I think the biggest thing is, it's not really, it's a what can we afford? I mean, it's a what can we do, what can we afford? Everybody knows it needs done, so planning and zoning really does a lot of like the planning of this. But we're past that at this point. We all want to do this. I don't know that there's anybody that says we don't want to do it. Well, there's a couple residents that say we don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to spend the money. But the majority, we're to the point of how do we execute something, what do we execute, and how do we pay for it? And that's where it's been sitting for quite a while. That said, we took the initiative we signed a contract with them, with their firm last year. Was it like early last year? And they spent about 9 months putting together some engineering options for us, and that was what was presented, and that's what's online. So that's after doing the research and doing all of the stuff that they needed to do, those were the options that were brought to council with the approximate pricing for all of those as well. So now it's just a matter of taking that information and figuring out how to get to the finish line with one of them. And that's it, that's all I have.
I think we're a good group, though. I think
I think everybody has the same goals in mind to get, again, I don't think there's anybody sitting up here that says, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Now, you don't always have to agree, and that's the best part about everything. You don't always have to agree. As long as you have everybody has the same goals at the end of the day. The goals are to make sure the village doesn't fall apart, to make sure that the infrastructure is done, and we continue to maintain, be proactive instead of reactive in anything and everything that we try to do. You're not gonna always get it right, but your job is to do as much as you can
With the cards that you were dealt.
with the cards you were dealt. I mean, if we had if we had warehouses and things like that, we wouldn't have this problem. We had big, huge, medical facilities and things like that. We would just say, hey, Mike, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. But we do have to pick and choose. And I think making the new section over there helped a lot. But it helped, 20-some, 30-some years of deferred maintenance. So now we're still paying for all of that stuff. So this building, just because we have it, doesn't mean we're not paying for it. And I think those are the things that people haven't wrapped their heads around. We've done the sewers, but we have a bill for the sewers that we have to pay every single month, or I should say every single year. I don't know how often she pays it. I don't know if it's whatever.
Yeah.
But we have bills to pay to complete those. So we've been able to pay cash for some projects, but the majority of the projects we have loans for. We actually, and I don't know 100%, but I believe the water line project that we did how many years ago? 20?
Yeah, you did 4 phases. I think the last phase was 1998. So I think it was a 25-year payback.
And I believe those have just been paid back this past year. So just because we've completed projects, and this was part of what I was trying, when we were talking about that, just because something's done doesn't mean we're not paying for it. So that's the big thing that, we don't have millions of dollars that we can just go throw at certain things. And if we get a $4 million loan, we have to be able to afford the payment. And a payment on that it's not possible.
Yeah, so that's when the mayor brings up an interesting point. So like when we were looking at the rate study, so the village just recently raised its sewer rates and water rates because we needed to generate more revenue to pay for a lot of these things. When you look at it, it's like, yeah, like we were just talking earlier, look at the sanitary sewer fund, okay? We recommend $40,000 to $45,000 per year for CCTV work. But then there's also 2 loans that you're paying off. So you have an outlay of like $80,000 to $90,000 every year for the next, I think it's probably like 14 years, and then the one loan comes off, and then there's like a couple more years of the next loan. So that to me, that was one of the, when we really started looking at the rate studies, like those are things that like you just know it's like it's in your head, but then when you really start looking at the numbers, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
like we're only generating $60,000 a year in usage charges, but we have a $90,000 per year outlay. But you have this fund over here that's making up the balance. But then eventually you get to the point where, like the mayor said, the development was great, but the spigot turned off 3 years ago. So I mean, there's no new, we had this big influx of tap charges and capacity charges, but every time a house came on, they paid the bill, and then that money was never there again.
Right.
So we cleared a backlog of deferred maintenance, and now we've caught up, but we're still,
Right.
so.
There's still more maintenance. Forever. Okay, that's all I got. Anything else? Okay. Meeting adjourned.